Welcome to a Wibbly Wobbly Timey-Wimey Minisode.
I'm Lucia Kelly.
And I'm Talia Franks. And we're coming to you outside of our regularly scheduled episode for some breaking news.
So, Talia.
So, Lucia.
Have you heard?
The big news?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is crazy, crazy wild. But breaking news. RTD's coming back to Doctor Who.
He's back. Okay. All right. So, thoughts? What do you think? He's coming back.
I'm cautiously excited. I think one of the things that we as a fandom deal with is the fact that we look at Russell T Davies' era with rose-tinted glasses because Stephen Moffat was so bad. Because Stephen Moffat was so bad, we look back at Russell T Davies with this fondness and this nostalgia that, as we've seen, as we've been analysing it, is not like 100% accurate. I do think he's better than Stephen Moffat. I'm not qualified to talk on him in comparison with Chris Chibnall. I've only seen, I think, 5 episodes.
That's exactly my thing. And I'm not sure if the microphone is picking up my snapping, but this is exactly my thing. Is I think a lot of people are excited about RTD in particular because they never gave Chibnall a chance because Moffat burned them. So they never gave Chibnall a chance.
Chibnall was the rebound after the toxic boyfriend.
Yes, Chibnall was
they never considered him an actual person. They were just there for their own emotional growth.
Yes, exactly.
And now the old flames come back and it's like, he's interested in me. It'll work out this time, I swear. The one thing I am one thing I'm excited about is that the show going back to its roots of being grounded in everyday humanity. That is something that Russell T Davies does incredibly well, and I'm excited to see that. I'm also excited to see, queer representation that doesn't make me cry inside, which is another thing Russell T Davies is good at. I mean, it does make you cry, but in a good kind of way, as opposed to the I'm angry at the world and why the fuck can't we just get good representation kind of way.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm like, I feel in terms of representation, I don't know that Russell T Davies did a great job. I don't know that Chibnall did a great job. I feel like for white men, they both did as good jobs as they could without hiring writers who actually came from those backgrounds. And I think, Chibnall did a better job of it actually, because he actually, made the step of actually hiring writers of color and hiring more women writers. And shocker of all shockers, he hired women writers of color. But he also did a lot of co-writing, which really bothers me. I wish he'd let people write their own episodes instead of co-writing them all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The point, I mean, I know that writing is a collaborative process. I just wish that, there was a Black woman who had her own episode that wasn't co-written.
Yeah, definitely diversity has to start in the writer's room. It has to start with the crew. It has to start with the production team. It's great to see diversity on the screen because that's the most sort of direct view that the average viewer gets. But if the foundation isn't there, it leads to all kinds of complications.
But the thing is, if there's diversity on the screen and the words are coming out of the mouth of a Black person, but if they're not written by a Black person, it's just I don't know, it's not blackface, but it feels like it. Because it's not like a Black person actually wrote that. It's not like they said that. Like they're saying it because but it's just they're being a vehicle for some white person's words.
And that's definitely like it has been 20 years. I'm gonna put faith in the fact that the industry has kind of developed, and also that Russell T Davies as a writer, as a showrunner, has developed and advanced with the times. I've liked his recent projects and what he's been doing. I like the sort of things he's said in interviews and things like that. What I'm not as excited about, and this is more of a problem with New Who as a whole, but Russell T Davies definitely set that precedent, is the hanky-panky, the canoodling, the
doctor being a romantic interest for the companions. I also I'm not interested in seeing another conventionally attractive white man doctor who is romancing all the companions and who is like the center of the whole show and is, you know, some sort of lonely god, has to save the day all the time. I feel like one of the great things about the 13th Doctor is that, and her run, is that she's been decentered as the Doctor, and that the stories have been about the Doctor and the companions as a unit. But the thing is that if we go back to the Doctor being centered again, and the Doctor being like the focus of the show, and it being a male Doctor again, that'll mean that the only time the Doctor was decentered, the only time the Doctor was not the romantic focus of the story, will be when it was a woman Doctor.
I find it very interesting that when the Doctor is a man, he can have romantic interest in his female companions, but when the Doctor is a woman, she can't have romantic interest in her female companions or male companions, right? That it's a desexualization of the Doctor, which is, again, what I want. But given that we've introduced this element, it has to be removed with care.
I feel like Peter Capaldi's Doctor was definitely, I feel like the desexualization of the Doctor began with Peter Capaldi's Doctor. That was something that I remember reading. Peter Capaldi, when he took on the mantle of the Doctor, was very firm about that he didn't want any hanky-panky in his TARDIS. So that was actually really refreshing for me when I saw season 8. That was very much not for all the misgivings I have about season 8. And honestly, I'm starting to come around on season 8. I'm starting to think, you know, season 8 wasn't that bad. But for all my misgivings about it, I really do. I think that's definitely why Peter Capaldi is like my Doctor, and why I love him so much, is because I feel like he definitely didn't have any of that. And it's funny that I loathe Moffat so much, and yet I love 12 so much. It's an interesting cognitive dissonance in my head. My love of 12 and my dislike of Moffat.
Well, from all I've heard, Peter Capaldi was very vocal about the way that his Doctor was going to be represented, and I think you can see that in the finished product. Yeah, I've heard several interviews where he like put a stop to certain things in the writing or in episodes, or fought back against certain representations of what the Doctor would be doing. And my heart, I love that. I love when actors are given the space to, and given the authority, and that the culture of the set and the environment is open and collaborative enough that that's possible, because it's so important. Of course, the showrunner's thinking of 100 different things at once. It reminds me a lot of my experience as a role player in terms of like RPGs and stuff. The role of DM or GM, of game master and of player, are very different. And depending on, you know, the skill of the player and the game master, you're going to have different levels of games, just as with a TV show, you have the showrunner and you have the actor. And the game master's thinking of 100 different things at once. They've got, 100 different strings on the line. And that leads to a very cohesive view, but not necessarily a specific view. The player, the actor, is the one who's thinking about the character, the motivations, the story 24/7. They're in the role if they're, treating it with respect. And so they're more often going to have a much clearer view of those things because they spend more time thinking about it. The game master, the showrunner, simply does not have the time to think about each character and their journey with the same level of dedication and thought. And that's perfectly normal and human. So the best stories come from when you can have a truly collaborative experience and everyone can pitch in. And from everything that I've read, everything I've heard, that was very much the vibe of the Capaldi era, which led to a better Doctor. Surprise, surprise.
But we're not here to gush over Capaldi, who I will happily gush over Capaldi whenever and wherever. But however, I think we were supposed to be talking about Russell T Davies. Got into a little tangent there. Yeah, I am looking forward to seeing what Russell T Davies brings back. I think also bringing him back was honestly a really smart choice on the part of the BBC, just because I feel like after everything that has happened with, and the thing is, so much of what the modern era of Doctor Who has done hasn't even been that progressive, or hasn't even been that, like, people often call Doctor Who too like woke or whatever. And the thing is, one, it's not even that woke. Like, having a white woman doctor is not, having one white woman at the end of a long line of white men is not revolutionary.
And the show having moderately leftist viewpoints from a political point of view is also not woke. Like, they're barely scratching the surface of what they could do.
They're barely scratching the surface.
It is a very moderate leftist show. That's it. It's not breaking any boundaries.
It's not breaking any boundaries. And it's honestly not going nearly as far as many people, including myself, wish it would. And honestly, like, to the extent that it is like woke or whatever, Doctor Who has always been political. It's always been pushing what boundaries they decided to push. Like, it's always been like, so people saying that it's too political when it's always been political. It's always been saying things like way back to classic Who. So like, people complaining.
Sci-fi as a genre is inherently political, because sci-fi as a genre asks the writer, asks the creator to envision new worlds. So when you're envisioning new worlds, you are inherently looking at our current world and creating a new one. You are creating it from the old. And very often they use it to explore different avenues of the what if question. What if this happened? What if this happened? Whether that's what if this happened in the future, or what if this happened in the past. Asking those questions inherently looks at the interweaving, enmeshed threads of what makes up our universe. And as much as people who have the liberty and privilege to do so, to say that things aren't political, that is not true. The world is inherently political because it is inherently human, and humans create society. Society creates politics, right? Like, it's all about our connections and our communications and our relationships to each other and the categories that we put ourselves in. And that is what builds the world, and that is what builds our fiction, and that is what builds sci-fi. There is no aspect of our media that is not political. And it's not making a statement, whether that's inherent, whether that's on purpose, or whether that is the implicit subtext of where the writer is coming from.
Yeah. And also, I think it's very telling that a lot of people think it's too political to have a world that's not made up of and ruled by white men.
Yep.
And I'm going to leave it at that. The thing that I was trying to get at is that because people think that Chibnall's era, which is just a little bit too leftist for some people, is too political and too woke, and because it was so divisive and because so many people fled after Moffat, I think that bringing back RTD was the really smart choice, because if they'd gone a bit farther and brought on, shockers, a woman or a person of color to be the showrunner, or even just, another white man who's an unknown, like, that would be chaos and open up a whole can of worms and people fighting over, is this person good enough, or this person's politics are this, or this person's politics are this, or this person's too much. Like, RTD is, he's the only one everyone can agree on. He's like the bridge, the peacemaker, the one that people can all be like, okay, like he's the one that we can like go forward with. So I feel like we don't really know what's going to happen in the future, but it makes sense to bring him back at least for a couple years, like maybe 2, 3, 4 max, probably, just to smooth over the transition before we try again, hopefully with someone not Moffat.
Yeah.
Not Moffat-y.
Yeah, we're not asking for the whole cycle to renew. We're just asking for the whole cycle to renew.
We're just asking for a soft reboot. I think also the issue with Moffat isn't even that he's a bad writer, because he's not. He's a great writer.
We've established that.
He's a brilliant
writer.
Fantastic, brilliant writer. I think his issue is that he was split in too many different directions. Like you said, the showrunner, the game master has to have their eye on the ball and has to have the cohesive vision of everything that's going on. Moffat was doing too many things at once. He was trying to run Doctor Who and Sherlock at the same time. Those are two massive, massive projects. And trying to do all that at once is just too much for any one person. Just one of those projects feels like too much for one person. And like trying to mastermind all that, like, it's too much. It's just too much. And I feel like both of the projects suffered for it in the end.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're not going to talk about how Sherlock ended. That's
I never saw the end of Sherlock because I didn't want to deal with that.
Oh
no.
What I would love to see in this new era with Russell T Davies at the helm is, one, I want a woman of color as the Doctor. I saw a theory that I think might be maybe accurate, that they test new ideas by doing it with the Master. So like, first they made the Master a woman and everyone loved it, so now they made the Doctor a woman, and then they made the Master a man of color, and I'm like, interesting, please. I would love that. And I would also love to see a bigger TARDIS. Not the ship, but like the companions. One of the sort of things that New Who hasn't really delved in, they delved in a little bit with 13, is extended periods with more than one companion, like 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Like, I want a bigger team. And because it works, it gives you more story elements, it gives you more dynamics, and it also, as you say, decentralizes from the Doctor and makes it a much more interesting and compelling story. By doing that, you create so many more opportunities, and also reduce the chance of hanky-panky. And I would love to see it.
So I have a lot of thoughts. First, I'm going to react to what you said. I would also love to see a person of color as the doctor. However, caveat, RTD needs to hire more writers of color. Full stop. I would love to see for our new doctor, more than who the new doctor is, I just, in the writer's room, I want to see more women, more people of color, especially I want to have more queer narratives. I want to have more disability narratives. I want to have, like you said, a bigger TARDIS, but I want to make sure that the people in the TARDIS are actually given room to have character growth. I think the thing that was missing in 13's era, which I know you've only seen the first few episodes, so you haven't had time to fully appreciate the fact that Yaz and Ryan in particular just don't have a lot of time to develop as characters. I'm sorry to spoil this for you. They do not have a lot of character growth in the whole 2 seasons that we meet them. Like, they do have, Ryan has an arc, which is good. Yaz, so I don't know if you listen to the Queer Archive podcast, but you probably don't because you actually haven't watched the seasons that they cover. But the hosts of that podcast have a segment where they talk about whether or not Yaz can be lifted out of the episode, because that's how bad it is with regard to Yaz's presence in a lot of these episodes. So when I say that, like, the development for the extra characters in the TARDIS is bad, it can get pretty bad. So I think that's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to in the new RTD era, is getting to know the companions really well. Because I feel like we talk about Rose and how she has a lot of flaws that aren't fully examined, but we know what her flaws are. We know who she is as a character. I feel like we get to know the characters really well in an RTD's era. But I feel like that's something missing in Chibnall's era, is that with so many people in the TARDIS, it felt at times like I did get to know Yaz and Ryan. I feel like I had an idea of who they were, and I was able to fill that in for myself and imagine myself into them in a really full and realized way. But I know for a lot of other people, they felt kind of flat because they weren't as developed as, say, Rose or Martha or Donna. And then I feel like in Moffat's era, Amy and Clara were defined by the Doctor. So that's just something I'm really looking forward to in RTD's new era, is, as you said, grounding people in their everyday realities. This has been the Wibbly Wobbly Timey-Wimey podcast.
We hope you enjoyed this adventure with us through space and time.
You can find us elsewhere on the internet, on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram as @WibblyPod. Follow us for more Wibbly Wobbly content.
You can find out more information about us and our content on wibblywobblytimey-wimey.net, and full transcripts for episodes at wibblywobblytimey-wimey.net/transcripts.
If you'd like to get in touch, you can send us an email at wibblywobblytimey-wimey@gmail.com.
Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and other platforms, as it helps other people find us and our content.
Special thanks to our editor, Owen Elphick, who has been a vital member of the Wibbly Wobbly team.
That's all for now. Catch you in the time vortex.